All right, so this is how most people decide to get a new website. They one day have a thought that, I don't really like my website anymore, or even just, I'm a little bit bored. So they go straight to a designer and say, design me a website. That designer has a look at their website and basically says, well, these bits look a little bit out of date. The design language here isn't quite current. They then build a pretty picture of a website and send it over to the client, who is in love immediately with their new beautiful website. They spend loads of time and energy building it and getting it all live, only to realize it's a complete disappointment and has absolutely no impact on their business whatsoever. Now, this approach, whilst completely understandable, is totally wrong. And the reason it is totally wrong is because it starts with the design. It goes straight to design. Now, actually, design is stage 2 of a 3-step process. The first stage is planning. This is what we're going to be looking at today. The second stage is design, and then the third stage is build. So in this video, we're going to be going through the process of planning, and all of this is going to happen before we move into design. But going straight to design means that you will get a pretty dud, right? If you think about the perfect employee, your website is essentially an employee. It's essentially a marketing and sales person all in one. Now, if you were to design the perfect employee, what you wouldn't do is start by designing their physical characteristics, right? This would be super weird and would have absolutely no bearing on the success of that person. What you would do instead is you would look at what do they need to do, what's the result that they need to deliver. This is the planning phase, and it's exactly the same with your website. If we just start with the design, we miss all of the intent, the conversion, the SEO, the structure navigation, and the user journey stuff. We miss all of it. We just go straight to designing pretty pictures. So the 5 stages of planning that we're going to go through in this video. Firstly, we're going to start with the structure of your site. So this is the different pages that you have on your site and their order and their hierarchy. We're then going to plan the conversion route on your site. So this is the calls to action, how we're going to make people take the action that we want them to take. We're then going to talk about what needs to happen with SEO planning. Then we're going to look at content planning, and then finally we're going to look at wireframing. So as we go, I'm going to show you some real examples from Exposure Ninja where we've designed and built sites for clients, and we're also going to make up a fictional business to run through this process so we can do it together live. Now, by the way, this process comes from Exposure Ninja's experience building websites. If you don't know Exposure Ninja, we're a digital marketing agency, and for the last 10 years or so, we've launched usually between 1 and 10 websites a week. So we've done a fair few sites, and this process has evolved over that time. So I'm sharing our current process. Of course, there's other ways of doing it, but we find that this process works really well and produces sites that have a high level of performance when they are launched. So we're going to go through each of those 5 stages in turn, starting with website structure. So I hope you're finding this useful. And by the way, if you need help with your new website, then the team here at Exposure Ninja are extremely capable and very talented at building websites. We have an entire designer development team that just build websites using this process as the planning stage. If you're interested, we can provide you a free quote for your website. You can also request our free website and marketing review. All of this is at exposureninja.com. Just click the big button to request your free website and marketing review. We will analyze your current site, your competitors, and your marketing goals, and then we will recommend the changes that we would suggest to your website. And if necessary, we can then talk through and put together a quote for you. It's completely free of charge. There's absolutely no obligation to use our services, but go to exposureninja.com to request your free website and marketing review today. All right then, so step 1 in our planning process is website structure. Now, if we get this right, then when users visit our site, they'll find the information that they need really easily and will make conversions. Google will love our site from an SEO perspective. If we get it wrong, then the navigation on our site can feel messy and confusing. We can lose visitors and search traffic. So this is important. Our goal for this website structure planning stage is to order all of the pages that we're going to need on our website and work out which order they need to be and their hierarchy. Now, how we do this at Exposure Ninja is we use the bullet point format because it's really, really straightforward to see hierarchy using bullet points. So let's look at a couple of different examples of website plans so you can see how we would order the structure. So for this very simple and quite small site, you can see here that we just have a series of 8 or 9 top level pages. These are homepage, bridging loans page, because by the way, this is a business that provides bridging loans, case studies, testimonials, why us, about us, team, blog, and contact. So those are the top level pages. We wouldn't have homepage on the menu, so those other options are the ones that are on the menu. Very, very straightforward. Not a huge amount of information about the client's business, but this is designed to be a very, very simple website. Now, on the Exposure Ninja site plan, when we were last building our site, for example, this is a very different beast because this is a site with around 250 different pages. So we had a much more complex structure. On this plan for the most recent version of the Exposure Ninja site, you'll see the bullet point hierarchy in action. So we start with the home page. We then have a digital marketing services page. Now, if you're a services business or you have a lead generation component, you will likely have a service category page. This is the top level category page on your site where all your services are listed underneath. So we have sub pages underneath this, for example, our content marketing page, email, pay-per-click, SEO, design and dev, consultancy, and social media marketing. So these are all sub pages underneath our digital marketing services top level page. But underneath those sub pages, we also have further sub pages. So for example, underneath content marketing, we have all the different services that are listed underneath CM. And we use these bullet points to denote the parent, child, and then, grandchild, great-grandchild relationships between these pages. Okay, so let's do one together. We're gonna create a fictional business. Now, I've been having some real trouble getting someone to come and do some tiling at our house. For some reason, people just don't turn up and it's really difficult to find anyone that will just take our money. So clearly this is a good business to be in right now. So we're gonna start a new business called Tim's Tiling, and I'm gonna offer some different types of tiling services for my clients. So how do we go about planning our website structure? Well, we're gonna start with our homepage. We know that that's an absolute shoo-in. You'd always have a homepage on your website. We're also gonna start with these 6 pages as well. Now, we'll always build these on a site regardless of the build. They are the contact page, a custom 404 page. This is the page that you're going to show when someone clicks a link that's broken. A thank you page. This will be used anytime someone submits a form. There's going to be a sitemap, terms and conditions, and privacy policy pages as well. So now it's up to us to figure out what other pages we want on the site. Well, I'm going to want a services page on my site. This is where I'm going to detail the top line services that I'm going to be offering. But I also want to give those services their own pages as well, because I want to optimize them for the relevant keywords for each of those services. So for example, I'm going to be doing bathroom tiling. So I'm going to add a bathroom tiling subpage. I'm also going to be offering kitchen tiling. So let's add that as well. What else is my business going to be doing? It's going to be doing tile cleaning. So I'm going to add a further subpage, and also let's go for tiling repairs. Now, by the way, I am right at the edge of my knowledge of tiling, just in case you didn't realize. So I've got my subpages there. Now, because I'm going to be a local business, I'm going to serve people in the local area. I'm not going to be traveling around the country or abroad to offer my tiling services. I'm also going to have a locations page, and this is going to allow me to talk about the different locations that I operate in, I have served, and will serve. I'm going to have a testimonials page as well, because this is going to be important for credibility. So I'll also probably include some case studies and some examples of my work on there. Because this is a very personal business, I'm going to build it around my own personal brand. So I'm going to have an about us or about me page as well. And then I've got my contact page too. So this is going to be a very simple site. As you can see, we're not going to have a huge number of pages. But that's a pretty good place to start. So what about if you're an e-commerce business? How do you use this structure then? Well, you might have a shop page on your site. So let's actually do this. I'm going to add a shop to my tiling business. So we're just going to add a tiling shop page here. That's going to be a top level page. So underneath this, you're then going to add the different product categories that you sell in. So at the risk of getting even further out of my depth here, I'm going to sell some tiles on my website. So I'm going to have a section where I'm selling tiles. I'm also going to be selling adhesives. I'm also going to be selling, say, grouting. Now, in the tiles category, I want to have some subcategories because I want to be able to sell different types of tiles. So let's say that I'm selling wooden tiles. Let's say that I'm selling stone tiles. and maybe some composite tiles as well. And by the way, I've got no idea if this is right. I've not personally built or researched a tiling site, but obviously this is something that the team at Exposure Ninja would research. So we've got our different sections of products here, and then we would have different products underneath each of these product categories. So the structure of your menu is going to depend on how large your site needs to be. I've just done a teardown of Fashion Nova, and reportedly they're adding something ludicrous like 600 to 900 products to their site every week or month, I can't remember. So they're going to have a very large structure. They're going to have lots of categories, lots of subcategories. So you'd need to build a much larger plan for a site like this, but that's okay. It's important to plan however large your site is. So at this stage, I'm feeling pretty good about my structure. Now, my structure isn't set in stone, and I'm going to come back to this over time. I'm even going to come back to this during the planning process, particularly the SEO side of things, if we find that we need to add more pages to our site due to our SEO research. And then once my site is launched, I'm going to be continuing to add more pages as I look at trends, as I optimize my site, as I do competitor analysis, and as I get feedback from my customers as well. So this is not set in stone, but this is a great place to start. Okay, the next thing that we need to plan on our website is our conversion path. If you're selling products to people through e-commerce, your conversion path is pretty simple. You're going to make people buy your products, go through a standard checkout process, and convert. Now, that's not to say there aren't things about your website that you can plan to increase conversions, but your checkout path is very straightforward. If you're a service company or you're generating leads through your website, then your conversion path needs thought. Namely, we need to decide what sort of call to action you're going to be using on your website and how to present this on the site. Now, we've got other videos about how to choose your call to action, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but the main consideration you need during the planning stage is, does your call to action, does the thing that you're using to incentivize people to become a lead for you warrant its own page, or is this something that can be handled on another page of your website without having its separate page? Let me show you an example. So if you go on the Exposure Ninja website, on our website development page, you will see that the main call to action above the fold is to request a free website quote. This is because people that want a new website, one of the first things that they ask for is a free quote. Now, of course, a whole bunch of work and analysis has to go in before a quote can be provided, but the thing people really want at this stage is a quote, so they can work out, are Exposure Ninja the right company to build my website, or do I need to go for somewhere else because my budget is completely different? So that is the offering. Now, a quote is fairly simple to understand. People come in expecting and wanting a quote. We're saying, we can get you a quote, just fill in this form, and then we don't need to give them too much information about the background and how it all works. The free website review, on the other hand, this is slightly different. So you'll notice that the main call to action on our website is requesting a free marketing review. We then explain how this works and we build credibility around it. Now, this is really important because we're asking for a lot of information. Now, let's go back to the Tim's tiling business example. So let's say that my call to action, the way I'm going to generate leads for Tim's tiling business, is going to be through a free design and quote process. Now, I might just have a little box on the side of my site that says, get a free quote, fill in your information here and we'll give you a free quote. But I want to go a little bit further. I want to offer a really comprehensive quote and design thing where I actually come and visit them to build a bit of a relationship first. And this requires me to do some pre-qualification. Namely, I'm going to need to know where people are based, and I'm going to need to find out a little bit of information about their budget if I'm then going to invest the time in helping them and putting together this quote. So I'm going to need to ask them for a decent amount of information, which may include where they live, like their address. So in order for them to give me their address, I need to sell them adequately on the benefits of this free design and quote. So I'm actually going to give it a separate page on my website so that I can explain the benefits. I can have some testimonials from people who've seen the design. I can show some examples of what the design might look like. I can talk through the process and reassure them that there is no obligation to use my services just because they're requesting the design. So I'm going to give this a separate page on my site, which I'm going to call free design and quote. Now we're going to come back to conversion a little bit later when we go through the wireframing stage, but for now, That's this planning stage done. I know what my call to action is, and I know that I'm going to give it its own page. So I hope you're finding this useful. And by the way, if you need help with your new website, then the team here at Exposure Ninja are extremely capable and very talented at building websites. We have an entire designer development team that just build websites using this process as the planning stage. If you're interested, we can provide you a free quote for your website. You can also request our free website and marketing review. All of this is at exposureninja.com. Just click the big button to request your free website and marketing review. We will analyze your current site, your competitors, and your marketing goals, and then we will recommend the changes that we would suggest to your website. And if necessary, we can then talk through and put together a quote for you. It's completely free of charge. There's absolutely no obligation to use our services, but go to exposureninja.com to request your free website and marketing review today. The next stage of our website planning process is SEO. Now, building your website with SEO in mind from the start saves you time later. Of course, you're going to be tweaking and optimizing your SEO as you go and as your website is live. Just like your website itself will continue to evolve and should be a living, breathing thing rather than something that is cast in stone forever. But nevertheless, having SEO in mind can be really beneficial when you start planning your website to save you time and effort later on. For example, when we're building a website for clients, we will do keyword research as a core part of the website planning process, and we'll do it before we even start writing the content for the pages. This allows us to identify the primary and secondary keywords that we want to be targeting for this website and map them to each page on the site. Every single page on the site, we want to have a primary and secondary, or even multiple primary and secondary keywords that page should be targeting before we even think about writing copy for it. That means that when we start writing the copy, we know what that copy needs to target. We know what the subheadings on that page need to be. Our keyword research will also identify if there are other pages on the site that need to be added. So even though we've already finished the structure of the site piece of the planning process, when we do our keyword research, if we identify that there's a lot of search volume for a particular topic that isn't being catered to on the site already, we can then go back and add a specific page on the site that targets that topic. This means that we've got a range of pages on the site targeting all of the different keywords that we want the site to ultimately rank for. Now, of course, there are other SEO considerations as you're building a website, but at this stage of the planning process, that is the main thing that we're going for. We're looking to identify the core keywords that we want to target and mapping each of these to a different page on the site so that we know which pages need to target which phrases. For example, at Tim's Tiles, we know that we want to rank for Tyler's Cobham, right? This is the broadest possible phrase I could want my local business to rank for. Tyler's, I am a Tyler, or I would be in this fictional parallel universe, and Cobham is where I live. It's what the phrase I would want to target. It's the location I would want to target. Now, this is the broadest phrase possible for the business, so the main page I would want to be targeting with this keyword would be the home page. Now, I also know that I want to rank for phrases like bathroom tilers, kitchen tiling, those sorts of phrases, and I know that they are best served by the specific pages about those topics. So for example, my bathroom tiling phrase, well, that's going to be served by the bathroom tiling page. Yes, I might get my homepage ranking for that phrase as well, but I'm going to be able to much better optimize a page that is specifically about that topic to get it ranking than I am for my homepage. Okay, step number 4 is content planning. So we've got our website structure and our pages decided. We've got our conversion goals and how we're going to present them on the site decided. And we've got our target keywords and we've mapped these to pages. So now it's time to plan out our content. Website content is one of the most misused, and I'll be honest, it's one of the most sticky areas of any website build. Here's what will often happen. We'll say to a client, we need some copy for this page. They'll say, yeah, fine, don't worry, we'll get it. And then it just goes into this black hole where they don't really know what to write. It just gets really, really messy. Here's how we do it. You've got your target keywords for each of your pages. What we'll do is we'll create a copy planner. So a copy planner will look something like this. So this is a copy planner for one of the pages on the Exposure Ninja website. So we've got the URL of the page. That gives us a bit of context as to where this is going. We've then got the target keywords and we've got our H1s and H2s planned. We've even written the meta description, and we've included a button text as well. We then have separate headings down the page, which we know are going to kind of signpost the content that we're writing. So how do we decide these headings? Well, these will be based on the keyword research that we do. So for example, let's say for my bathroom tiling page, I know that I want to target keywords like emergency bathroom tiling, free bathroom tiling quotes, reliable bathroom tilers, things like that. So I'm then going to create subheadings on my page, if it's relevant, if it makes sense, if they're good quality, about these different topics, okay? So I'm going to write these subheadings down the page, and I can then flesh them out with copy. Now, the reason we write these in a Google Drive document is to kind of keep it a little bit separate from the design. Now, this can work really well to keep you focused on the content that you're writing without getting distracted by design. But you do have to keep in mind that you are designing for a web page. You're not writing a book, you're not writing an email. This is something that is going to be presented, there's going to be pictures, and you do have a kind of limit on your audience's attention span. So you need to bear those things in mind when you're writing copy for a web page. What we will sometimes do is actually create a sort of wireframe version of the website in a Google Doc that we can then write around, so we can see the layout of the page and know exactly what we're writing for. Now, at this point, you can also work out how many words of copy you need for each page, and you can include those in your website planner. Now, how you might do this? Well, there's a couple of different ways. Firstly, you can look at how much copy the competing sites in the SERPs are using. So if you're competing for a phrase that there's loads and loads of copy on every single page that's ranking, you know you need to bring some firepower to those searches. If you're competing for a phrase which is fairly straightforward, fairly easy to understand, and there's not much copy on competitor sites, well, that might be a template that you want to follow. If in doubt, think about your best salesperson standing in front of your best customer. Your best customer says, okay, so tell me about your bathroom tiling service. How much information would your best salesperson give that customer? And that's a really good guide to work out how much information to give your potential customers on your website pages. So remember to include enough info about the specific product or service that you're selling them, and also handle their main objections on those pages as well. Once we've done all of this, we will move into wireframing. Now, wireframing is kind of part planning, part design, and the goal of the wireframing piece of the project is to start thinking about the user journey. So what we really want to do here is start thinking about the information that users are going to need in order as they're going down a page, and how we're going to turn them into a lead or a sale. So the goal of the wireframing piece is to think about the structure and the layout of a page. Now, when we're designing a wireframe, we'll keep these really simple and actually looking really basic and a little bit childish. Here's an example of a wireframe. Now, why do we make it look rubbish? Well, the reason we make it look rubbish is as soon as we start adding colors and image and look and feel stuff, everyone, and by everyone, I mean us and the client, starts getting distracted by that stuff. And we start, talking about, oh yeah, maybe we could use pictures like this, maybe we could use colors like this, or even just thinking, wow, that looks great, and not really thinking about the user journey stuff. Good design can blind people, right? And you become design blind and you don't think through what you're doing because you're so in love with the look of something. So it's important to get this user journey stuff in place before you add the design layer. So what we're really looking for here is what are the essential elements that are needed as people move down this page. Now here's a desktop wireframe which has been designed for a client site, and you can see we've got the menu structure here, we've got the call to action, we've got some credibility triggers showing just above the fold, we've got an explanation of the process, we've got how it works, we've got some credibility down here. So you can see how this page has been designed to look in the wireframe. Now, when we start moving into design, we may play with this layout. Once we actually see it kind of laid out in pictures, we may play with it, we may adjust it based on client feedback. But we want to make sure that we're thinking through the user journey really clearly at this stage. And by the way, if you want to see how this design ended up playing out, here's the desktop version of the site once it's been designed. So we can see lots of those elements were in place. Now we removed some of the text. We had a different sort of call to action box here. We've got the credibility here. We've got the 3 steps to sell your property, how it all works, and then the credibility, what our customers say, and then the blog. So you can see we've actually stuck pretty faithfully to the wireframe layout. Here's another example of a wireframe. Again, you can see we've got a website structure here. We've got some CTAs. We've added these sticky notes so that we can explain different elements that we're talking about to the client, but we're basically just laying out the page without any look and feel whatsoever. This is the building blocks. This is the architectural drawings. And then when we turn it into the design, that's when we start adding the style elements and start getting feedback and start thinking about some of these things in more detail. So there you have it. There is the website planning process. If you found this useful, then please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We post at least one new video each week, and let us know in the comments if you enjoyed this breakdown. We've been through the 5 steps of the website planning process. We started with looking at the structure and the pages of your website, and we ordered them in bullet points with indentation to show the parent-child, grandchild relationship of these pages. We then looked at the conversion planning to work out what the call to action is going to be and whether this needs its own page or whether we can just implement it on the side of each individual page. We then did the SEO planning to understand which keywords we're going to be targeting with the site and how do we map them to individual pages. After that, we worked on the content plan, so how much content we need for each page on the site, and then what are the subheadings that we're going to be using on each page based on our keyword research. And are there any other pages that need to be added to the structure based on that keyword research as well? And then finally, we moved into wireframing, which is where we start thinking through the user journey and how they navigate through the site to make sure that all the important elements are there to turn each visitor into a customer. Well, as many visitors into customers as we possibly can. Only after we've done all of that do we then give it to a designer so they can start making this thing beautiful. But as you can see, there's a lot of work that goes in before the design phase, and all of this is really important to make sure that we get a website which is high performance and doesn't just look pretty. Of course it needs to look pretty, but that is one aspect of a much longer process. So thanks for joining us on this video, and don't forget, if you want to help planning your next website, then request a free website and marketing review from the team here at Exposure Ninja. We have a dedicated design and dev team that spend all their lives building websites, and they're pretty good at it. We've built some very high performance sites, including sites that have dominated ranking, sites for 8-figure businesses that have increased their revenue 34% in a year. We've created sites that have converted over 40% conversion rate. So if you need some help with your website and you're looking for a team that gets the whole thing and not just pretty design, then contact the team at Exposure Ninja. So request your free website and marketing review. Go to exposureninja.com/review, fill in the form, and one of the team will be in touch within 2 to 3 working days with a video breakdown showing you how we would adapt your website and what it needs to include. And from there, we can go into price and building out a full plan for you as well. Until next time, see you soon. I can feel my wife laughing at the irony about me making a video about planning, but obviously it's different when it's planning digital marketing, right?